Technology has not only transformed economies, but is also changing society, global politics, attitude towards languages, and demand for languages. In this module, we'll discuss how technology has enabled different patterns of communication and the implications these have for language use. When the internet was introduced, English was supposed to be a prerequisite for its use. So, in the past, English was needed to use the internet and the computer. If you wanted to use the internet or you wanted to use the computer, you needed to have satisfactory command over the English language. However, gradually there was a decrease in the number of internet users who had English as their first language, and therefore it seemed as if the days of the domination of English over the internet were also over. We see a gradual decline in the web content in English. Different research studies have reported this declining trend. For example, a study in 1998 reported that 85% of web pages were in English. Only in a year's time, this number reduced to 72%. A study in 2000 reported that the web content in English was only 68%. And this change in the decline in the use of English for web pages again has different reasons. One reason is that there are more non-English speakers who use the internet. For example, when the internet was introduced, people had limited access to the internet, and most of the more developed countries of the world had internet available for general public and general population. Therefore, the number of people who used internet was mostly the people who used internet mostly were English speaking. But gradually, as internet became easily accessible all around the world, including developing countries, for example, many countries in Asia and Africa, etc., the use of English on the internet seemed to be decreasing. Also, now there are computer software which support different languages. So in the beginning, the software which was used only supported probably or mostly supported English script, but now there's a large number of software which support other scripts as well, and therefore the use of different languages has become possible on the internet. Also, a very important factor is that in many countries, internet is used for local information only. For example, if you want to know about the prayer timings in Lahore, you can go to Hamari Web or some such website to find out what the prayer timings in Lahore these days are. Similarly, if you have a wedding coming up, maybe you want to shop for Pakistani wedding dresses, and again, this need for the use of internet is very local. Similarly, some major uses are mainly national. For example, e-commerce, websites like Daraz.pk and Yevo.pk, etc. So all these websites mostly target Pakistani buyers or Pakistani audience. Also, for informal communication, for example, for chatting with friends or family, one uses a local language, one's own first language. The preference is not English in that case, but your own language. This change from being an Anglophone phenomena to a multilingual phenomena, this change in the internet use raises a question. The question is whether this popularity of English on the internet was real. For example, the popularity of English the use of English on the internet was because of the popularity of English, or was it only a time lag? Because we see that internet sites in local languages become available only when there are users in the local languages. So perhaps in the beginning, most of the users of the internet and the computer comprised English speaking people, and gradually the people who had other languages as their first languages, non-English speaking people, also started using the internet. So when people who used other languages started using the internet and the computer, the websites, the sites which were meant for these people also began to appear on the internet. Different surveys have shown that people who use, even the people who live in the USA, when and use English all the time, when they are asked about their preference for the language on the internet, they say if they have an alternative available in their own language, they would opt for their own language rather than English. Many corporate websites also use multilingual strategies. So they may have some information in English, but they also include some information in their own local language. People have also now started using their own language on the internet because of the easy availability of translation machines. So the translation from English to their own language, or from their own language to English, is only a click away. And as we have already said, that internet now serves more local needs in terms of shopping, in terms of announcements, in terms of sharing news, breaking news, etc., breaking stories. So within a country, the internet targets national needs, national uses, and national interest, the interests of the people within the country rather than an international audience. We also see a trend for English in the news media. For a very long time, the international news was also dominated by English. However, this trend has also changed recently, especially with the opening of Al Jazeera in Qatar. It was then followed by other countries as well. So we see the opening of channels in local languages. And this trend was in a way welcomed because it provided a different viewpoint, which was available in the international news in English. The local channels, the channels which broadcast news in local languages, gave another viewpoint. So this trend was quite welcomed. Now we see an increase in the number of languages in which news is available. So we have Arab channels, we have Russian channels, German channels, so on and so forth. Many of these local channels then decided to go global. For example, Al Jazeera went global by establishing an English news channel. I'm sure your own cable operators also subscribe to Al Jazeera in English. After Al Jazeera, Russian government also started a news channel in English, Russia Today, which is also which can also be viewed from Pakistan. And then similarly, we have a German international channel called Deutsche Welle, which is also available on Pakistani cables and internet. Then another feature of the use of technology, or another aspect of the use of information technology, is the increasing number of blogs. I'm sure you're familiar with this term. A blog is an online information website where a writer or even a group of writers, for example, you can start a blog individually, and you can also start a blog with a group of friends. So, on a blog, an individual or a group of writers share their views on an individual subject. So, you can do a lot of things actually. Many of these blogs are now almost like news channels. They break stories, they give their own opinions on different topics, etc. In fact, it is also said that many popular, successful international news channels, for example, BBC, they would also turn to these blogs to have an idea of the current trends or people's responses, etc. So, according to an estimate, there are more than 440 million blogs worldwide at present. When it comes to the choice of language for writing these blogs, it again depends on the context, the need of the writer, or the preferences of the writer, the goals of the writer, etc. For example, if the goal is to probably change the points of view of the local population on, or inform the local population about a certain issue, the target is the local audience only, probably the writer will use a local language. For example, we have many blogs in Pakistan in Urdu. However, if your goal is to talk about things with broader application and with broader implications, and you want to target the international audience, then your choice for the language will be English. So we see technology in this way is giving rise to different language trends and use of different languages on the internet, including English.